But first, buttons. But first, let's get the obvious thing out of the way. I know you know that, but first, we must make a technology connection.
But first I gotta get out of this thing.
But first, a few corrections. But first, a word from our sponsor. But first, I'm going to start this and show you how to do it. We'll go over that sequence of operations as well as the components themselves shortly, but first, let's discuss why we use these things. But first, these excellent systems at the very top of the list. But first, one last side note. But first, I need to address a small issue. But first, we need to step back from lanterns. But first, some background and trivia, because... But first...
I'll explain what I mean there, but first, let's have a look at a machine with this feature.
But first, we need to address a common misconception. But first, I'll be frank. But first, let's try and play it. But first, we'll need to go back in time.
The first is that its deinterlacing is very close to perfect.
But first, a quick reminder of what transformers do. But first, a one-paragraph explanation on camera basics. But first, we need to swap out this cheap IKEA table. But first, for those of you looking at this lamp with its clear liquid and yellow wax, I promise this is the last one. But first, lights.